Okay, so my paper is title is The School of Superman, Nietzschean Education for a Nietzschean World. So in this paper what I tried to show is that that religion still exists, coming from the previous presentation. Religion still exists, but it is true that the religion doesn't hold that kind of control that it once had among people. So when Nietzsche says that God is dead, it doesn't mean that a physical entity of God is dead, or he isn't even arguing about metaphysical or philosophical God. What he means by God is the power of God on people's lives is diminished. So what my interpretation of Nietzsche is, and what I showed through my reading critiques, is that the failure of religion on controlling people's lives. So like the last presentation, we heard that like people have their own interpretations of religions now. So that's why, like, by that we see that religion as a control mechanism is falling, and like with that fall, it's evident that any sort of control mechanism that claims some sort of divinity over people will eventually fall. Therefore, the only way for a sustainable, metaphysical explanation of life would be if someone could come up with their own explanation of life, like from their own perspective. So Nietzsche's coming back from Nietzsche's idea of perspectives, and that there cannot be one single absolute truth, but there could be only perspectives. So if that we hold true, if we think that okay, only perspectives can be true, then we must not teach students like the absolutionism, So the education in this society is, I won't say scientific anymore, it's almost religious. So when you teach students physics, you don't teach them how to research in physics. When you teach them computer science, you rarely teach them how to research, you just teach it like a religion. So this is the stuff, write it down. But otherwise, you should, like, that's the way just the preachers used to preach back in the days of religion. So it's basically the same. Science has become the new religion. So therefore, we need a mechanism that actually saves science. So what happened in Nietzsche and the years after Nietzsche is that the philosophers thought, like when they saw the success of science, they saw that they needed to be classy too. So they became scientists. That's why we saw the hypertrophy of reason and world turning into climate change and all that, because science was devoid of philosophy. So we need to get philosophy back into science and save science from becoming a religion. Because if science becomes absolute and students stop thinking, stops researching, and that's the end of education. So what Nietzsche says is the current educational systems are failing because they fail to give students these insights, these tendencies to research. So what I propose is an alternative educational institution. So Nietzsche says this, that we need to have a central apparatus. The state has to have an apparatus to train its employees so that it can employ, in places, because in order to function, you need doctors and engineers and all that. But for creativity, for the creation of the Ubermensch or the Superman, you need an alternative educational institution. For that, he exemplifies Burschenschaft, which is a student organization that was based on voluntary subscription. So I propose that there could be an alternative educational institution which could be based on voluntary subscription or even voluntary donations. So when you have that institutions, voluntary teachers come in and they lead the conversation. They don't teach students. They just open their minds up to different perspectives and help them choose between different perspectives. So just like they can teach science, they can teach philosophy, they can teach whatever. But whenever they teach it, they have to teach it in a philosophical manner, so that these students that come out of this voluntary educational institution all become researchers. So this could be a 3-month summer school, something very voluntary. Nobody has to do it. And you will not get anything out of it that you could use in the real life. This would just be, you do something, this is for fun. So this would only take in students that would do it for fun. And the fun would be to research. And in this process, the school would try to bring in some Superman. So the word Superman in here does not mean the cartoon Superman, because in my paper I say that every cartoon Superman has its kryptonite. So when you make someone else into your Superman, it has a kryptonite. So at some point it falls. So you take one leader, as your idol, and you study about their life, and you find out they had some fault, and they're not your leader anymore, and you're devastated. So the only sustainable method is that you create your own superhumanity and try to reach that superhumanity. That's Nietzschean superhumanity to me. So that's what the School of Superman would try to do. It would try to teach students to create Supermen of themselves. So the methodology of that would be revealed. I will do more research in it, and I also do plan to actually create this kind of a course where it would be a real course where real educators would come in, where the educators would only lead the conversation. They would not teach anything. They would just lead researchers for people. And then I will try to see if something actual original comes up with it, and if that experiment is successful, I would also add that in my paper, and I would wish to continue working on this paper. So yeah, that's it.
So that's your first book?
That's yeah, maybe.
How many pages?
This is 30 pages, and I wrote a paper. Yeah, and I wrote
intro.
The class in the previous class.
Yeah.
Thinkers, Representative Thinkers. I wrote a paper on that, on the intro to philosophy and intro to education. And I wrote this paper so that this can match up as a second edition, like second chapter, like second book to that. So that could be book 1. This could be book 2. And then I go on.
Chapter 1, chapter 2.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And then I would add chapter 3, where I would add empirical evidence of when I actually do the research. So I endeavor to go back to my country, Bangladesh, and because I know a lot of people there who don't know how to even when I came in here, I didn't know what APA was, what APA citation format was. I didn't know what MLA citation format was. I had no idea how to do a research, and in my first class I had to write a research paper, which is completely absurd. And it's absurd to me that all the students in Bangladesh have to go through the same thing, and they pass bachelor's degree without knowing how to write a research paper.
Really?
Yes, and with honors. I have seen students with honors who don't have any idea how to write a research paper. That should not happen. So that's why I intend to go back to my country, spend 2 or 3 months, have an apparatus like that, where you would also teach something that would bring in some money, and with that money you support this voluntary subscription. So you can take an actual exam, let's say an SAT exam prep course. So that's there, that's where the money comes in, and that money you use for this voluntary subscription program.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed this, but what level would your students?
Oh yeah, I missed it, so it's my fault. So what I will take is that this students would be high school graduates, just before going into college.
So that's somewhere between.
The summer is exactly the summer between.
Preparatory class for university.
Yeah, kind of. So what happens in Bangladesh is you have this 3 months gap after high school when you decide which college you want to go to, right? And you take the admission test and stuff, right? So that is a preparatory period. So what I would do is I would just enter this course you need to know how to do research before you go to college. Like Nietzsche says this too. A student must be prepared for research before he goes to college, because according to Nietzsche, college is valueless. College has become just like a glorified high school if you don't do research. So in my knowledge, if someone has a BA degree and doesn't know how to do research, that degree doesn't mean anything. It's just a glorified high school diploma. So that's why this thing would prepare them to do research, when they go into college. Even if their college, doesn't help them do it, they can just do it independently. Making independent researchers. That's the goal.
Cool.
Thanks.